It's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this weekend on the undercard of Richardson Richards versus Jose Zepeda. We're going to be seeing Sandy Ryan take on Jessica McCaskill in what is a unification match for 3 of the 4 major titles in the 140-pound division. What could happen if Jessica McCaskill wins? What could happen if Sandy wins? This is just a brief glimpse into the future. If Jessica McCaskill proves to be too much for Sandy Ryan, I could see a rematch between them happening. I could.
She wins.
I could see this turning into a 2-fight engagement with Sandy if Jessica wins. If it doesn't turn into a 2-fight engagement, that would also set up Jessica McCaskill for a rematch with Chantel Cameron.
Chantel's supposed to be fighting Katie Taylor again later on this year in November. Win or lose, I think she's going to move up in weight. Win or lose, I think her next stop will be at 147 pounds.
Win or lose, she will have done all there really is to do at 140 when you think about it. If she beats Katie, if she doesn't beat Katie,
she'll move up.
I think she'll move up. And if Jessica takes care of business, that does set up Jessica for a second fight, a rematch.
It's if Jessica wins. Now, if Jessica loses, I don't think there will be a second Sandy Ryan fight. If Jessica loses, I don't think there would be a rematch.
Now, Jessica made some inflammatory comments in reference to the Alicia Baumgartner anti-doping fiasco, comments that implicate Matchroom of perhaps being a saboteur, sabotage.
Rick Ramos stated that after she made those comments, Eddie Hearn gave him a call, and he wasn't happy.
Saying what she said may have strained her relationship with Matchroom in a way that maybe Matchroom isn't invested in her anymore. The fact that they've staged so many of her fights, the biggest fights of her career, allowed her to fight on the platform and put her in meaningful situations. If this is the response after all these years and all these fights, I don't imagine that Matchroom was happy about that.
Might have burned that bridge.
If we're being realistic, based on that, if she loses, neither Matchroom or DAZN might be in any hurry to do her any favors. So if Jessica loses, I don't think there would be a second Sandy Ryan fight.
I think Sandy would move on to a Chantel Cameron showdown
for what would be 3 of the 4 major titles at this weight. Chantel Cameron and Sandy Ryan, they have a bit of a domestic rivalry of their own. Perhaps it's not on par with the Michaela Mayer versus Alicia Baumgartner rivalry. It's not as talked about or publicized, but it's there.
They don't like each other.
Spicy back and forth between them many months ago that we talked about here on the channel. If Chantel takes care of business with Katie and moves up, and Sandy takes care of business with Jessica, I could definitely see a fight between them materializing next year.
Cameron versus Ryan.
As far as this weekend's fight, well, what's Sandy got to do to win? What's Jessica got to do to win? There's not much chance that a pressure fighter, a mid-range to inside brawler like Jessica, is all of a sudden going to become a different fighter overnight. That's not the way these things happen. So her best bet to win, based on what she normally does,
she's got to try to hit Sandy with so much, so hard, so fast, that Sandy ain't got room to breathe.
Target that body, take those legs away. Then set her up for big overhand rights.
These are 10 2-minute rounds. It's not 12 3-minute rounds like Serrano versus Ramos.
She won't have a lot of time, so she's got to make a conscious effort to go to the body to take Sandy's legs away, because Sandy's taller and longer.
Longer legs, longer strides.
Jessica's got to mix in body shots with her combinations. From the opening round to the final round, she needs to be making a conscious effort to consistently go to Sandy's body to take those legs away, because I've no doubts that Sandy has every intention of using them. She did in her last fight with Marie-Pierre Huel.
Marie-Pierre Huel's a pressure fighter, just like Jessica.
Sounds simple enough, but Jessica's got to try to rough Sandy Ryan up. Rough her up in a way she's never been roughed up before, and that may be easier said than done, but that's what she's got to do. That's the assignment.
What about Sandy?
Stylistically, Sandy Ryan has the advantage. The boxer-puncher versus the pressure fighter. More often than not, it favors the boxer-puncher, and that's what Sandy Ryan is. She can box when she needs to and punch when she needs to.
Several inches taller than Jessica McCaskill, 9 years younger than Jessica McCaskill.
Sandy has to manage the distance against Jessica because Jessica's going to be coming forward.
That we know.
She's got to set Jessica up. Jessica being a pressure fighter, you already know before the fight even starts, She's gonna come forward throwing punches in bunches. You won't have to find her. You use that against her.
Set her up.
Set her up for uppercuts. Because Sandy is taller and longer than Jessica, and because Jessica has a propensity for coming forward,
Shoot the upper.
Jessica can probably slip the straight punches, bob and weave under the sweeping hooks, but the uppercut, that might be a particularly important punch. Jessica does fight at a slight crouch.
So she's there for the upper.
Sandy's height advantage would allow her to really drive that punch, turn her hips into it. She's got to mitigate the exchanges. You don't always want to sell out. You don't always want to trade punches with Jessica in the pocket. You want to assert yourself in spots and box in spots.
Like Chantel Cameron did.
The key to beating a pressure fighter, even a really good one, is a balance of both offense and defense. You don't always want to sell out and trade punches.
You can't be on your bike all night either.
Takes balance. Careful not to let the pressure fighter overwhelm you and bully you around, though at the same time,
Not making their job easier, always selling out, always trading punches.
Jessica's coming off that lopsided loss to Chantel Cameron. Sandy's coming off that points decision win over Marie-Pierre Huel.
Based on styles, Sandy's got the edge.
I'm a fan of both fighters, so I don't have a horse in the race. Though looking at the fighters and how they operate based on styles, Sandy has the advantage.
You can make of that what you will, and we'll see what happens this weekend.
Men's welterweight news. Terence Crawford had this to say about Errol Spence Jr.'s fans. If you look at my fight with Errol Spence and how easily I defeated Errol Spence compared to all these guys on my resume that they were calling bums, that should tell them something right there. The guys you were calling bums put up a better fight than your favorite fighter.
He's right.
Many times have you already heard me say that right here on this channel? That Mean Machine, that David Evanesian, in many ways they put up a better fight against Terence than Errol did. And it's probably because they're better fighters than they're given credit for, and Errol is given too much credit.
Put on a pedestal.
Doesn't mean he's a bad fighter. Two things can be true at the same time. You can be overrated. You can be an overrated fighter, but still a good fighter. And that's what Errol Spence Jr. is.
Overrated.
Was overrated. I'm no Monday morning quarterback. For the last 5 years, I told you, Terence Crawford would not only outclass Errol Spence Jr., but he would stop him.
And he did.
And his fans aren't taking it well. It's noticeable. It's noteworthy how big a case of sour grapes this is. Terence added, Errol Spence is a great fighter, but there's no comparison. When you compare Errol Spence to Terence Crawford, there is no comparison. I'm already going to the Hall of Fame. If we retire right now, he's not going to the Hall.
It's a legitimate observation. Errol Spence Jr. was never the welterweight's lineal or Ring Magazine champion. What he was unified.
That's all well and good, but Mudajan Akhmadaliev was a unified champion. Stephen Fulton was a unified champion.
Are they going to the Hall?
To a better beef, here and now. He's a unified champion, but could you say that based on what he's done so far, he's got a Hall of Fame career?
No.
A Hall of Fame resume?
No, I think those eggs need more bacon, and I think the same applies to Errol Spence Jr. Perhaps if he had won, he certainly would have had a stronger argument, but he lost.
I said it many times in the build-up, and I'm saying it again here and now. Terence already had a Hall of Fame claim, a Hall of Fame career so far, because without Errol, he was a 3-division, 2-time lineal, 2-time Ring Magazine, former undisputed champion, and a current champion at welterweight. That's without Errol. With Errol, he's a 2-time undisputed champion in the 4-belt era and a 3-time lineal, 3-time Ring Magazine.
This is not hard to understand.
It's only hard for Errol Spence's fans to understand. It's only hard for them to wrap their minds around because they're the ones that put Errol Spence on a pedestal. They're the ones who spent 5 years tearing Terence Crawford down. So when these two guys finally fight,
He annihilated Errol.
this is one of the worst cases of sour grapes I've ever seen in the sport. On par with what we saw 2 or 3 years ago when Tyson Fury annihilated Deontay Wilder in the second fight and the third. This case of sour grapes is definitely on par with that one without any baseless accusations.
There's no Glovegate conspiracy. There's no Glovegate to lean on.
Errol Spence Jr., to his credit, he's not making excuses after the fight like Deontay was making excuses after the fight. This is definitive. Finite.
The only ones making excuses are his fans, not Errol.
I said it ahead of the fight. Errol's not making things easy on himself, saying that he doesn't believe in tune-up fights and he doesn't want to take one. The layoff that he was coming off of.
That's his fault.
The fight having taken so long to make, 5 years in the making.
That's his fault.
You can't pity him for it. You can't feel sorry for him when All of that is his fault. It never had to take this long. It took this long because you were insistent you wanted to clean up your side of the street first.
That's his fault.
I never thought that Errol Spence Jr. would win this fight. Not 5 years ago, not 5 years later, but at least if he would have done it 5 years ago, he would have looked better. Perhaps it wouldn't have been as lopsided. Ultimately, I never thought Errol was the same caliber of boxer as Terence Crawford. What Errol is a decent mid-range to inside boxer puncher. Guy with a decent jab, decent body attack.
Okay, power.
Okay combinations, but leaky defense.
Gets hit too much.
Flew under the radar for a long time that Errol gets hit too much. He gets hit way too much when putting punches together. And perhaps it's because the guys that were touching him up, they're not big punches. They're not doing much damage, but they are getting in.
Getting off.
Comparing how many punches Sean Porter landed on Errol to how many punches he landed on Terence, Terence was able to cut Sean Porter's work rate in half.
More than that.
Where Sean landed more than 2 times the punches on Errol Spence Jr. More than 2 times.
Got leaky defense. He always did. In that fight, that was before the car accident. That was before all of that.
These glaring deficiencies, defensive deficiencies that I've noticed in Errol Spence Jr. How many jabs he got hit with in the Brook fight? How many punches Sean Porter landed when Errol fought him?
Got leaky defense. He always did.
How Errol's not really that good at managing distance with his lead hand, because if he were, Sean wouldn't have gotten his wheelhouse all those times. They told themselves that Errol's trying to beat Sean at his own game.
You know how fucking stupid that sounds?
You're letting this guy hit you that many times, land that many punches, and this is supposed to be you beating him at his own game?
You know how fucking stupid that sounds?
And what about the Danny Garcia fight? Whether you're talking about before the car accident or after it, the numbers tell the same story. The punch stats.
Got hit a lot in the Sean Porter fight before the car accident. He got hit a lot in the Danny Garcia fight after the car accident.
He always had leaky defense. So if you put him in there with another southpaw like himself, and if that southpaw happens to be a strong finisher, Errol's goose is cooked.
The writing was on the wall the whole time. You just didn't want to read it. Maybe you couldn't because you're illiterate.
When it comes to boxing, you guys are. You don't know shit about boxing.
You don't know what you're looking at.
You don't know shit about boxing. Other particulars in association with what could be Crawford versus Spence 2. Terence Crawford has now declared that the Errol Spence rematch clause contract states the second fight will be at welterweight 147 unless either fighter notifies in writing that they cannot make the weight anymore, which he says Spence has not done.
Up until this point, we've been under the impression that the winner of the first fight would dictate the weight for the second. That's what the reports have stated.
This does sound somewhat slightly different than that, though ultimately I don't think it matters. I think it's minutia. 147 or 154. Errol's gonna have the same holes, the same tendencies, the same habits. He'll get hit with the same punches. You can fight 7 pounds heavier.
Is that gonna make you a different fighter?
They feel that at 154 he will be more durable and take the punches better, but he's still gonna take the punches.
What are they not understanding? He's not gonna have 7 pounds on his face, 7 pounds extra on his jaw.
You think that if he doesn't have to boil all the way down to 147, he won't be as depleted. He won't leave as much of himself in the gym.
And that'll make him more durable.
That is what Errol Spence Jr.'s fans think. The same fans that were perfectly okay with Gervonta Davis using a catch weight on Ryan Garcia, of all people.
It's now come out he used the rehydration clause on Mario Barrios, according to Mario Barrios.
These same guys were perfectly okay with all of that, so they could turn around when it comes to this fight and claim that Errol was drained, and now Terence, he's trying to weight drain him.
By fighting him at 147.
He's trying to weight drain him. No, Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia, that's trying to weight drain a guy.
Not this.
The initial contract stipulates that the rematch has to be at welterweight, or that the winner dictates where the rematch takes place. The winner decides where it happens.
You schmucks didn't decide that weight was a factor until Errol got his ass kicked.
Before the fight, all you could talk about is how big Errol is and how strong he is and how he's going to overpower Terence Crawford, so that after the fight, you could play Monday morning quarterback and start moaning about weight. There's no need for a rematch.
You didn't want to listen to me before. Are you going to listen to me now? The same thing is going to happen in a rematch. 147 or 154.
The same thing is going to happen in a rematch. 147 or 154.
It's going to be the same thing.
The same punches that you were susceptible to at 147, you'll still be susceptible to them at 154, because what it all boils down to are bad habits and muscle memory. With other fighters, you could get away with those defensive deficiencies, but not with Terence. And the weight at which the contests take place, it doesn't change that.
You're still the same fighter.
Fighters like Errol don't change much from one fight to the next. All that changes is really who they're fighting, not how they're fighting.
It's too simple.
How many times have you heard me say that? The guy's approach is too simple, and he's no good against southpaws.
Oh, he's used to reaping the benefits of being a southpaw, having that advantage, but not dealing with it.
You guys think that if it's at 154, he'll be more durable, and he won't leave as much of himself in the gym when it's the jostling of the brain, the movement of the brain inside the skull.
Is his head gonna be 7 pounds heavier?
No Monday morning quarterback. I've been saying this for years. I don't like Errol Spence Jr.'s punch resistance. I don't like how he reacts to punches, and I've been saying this since before the car accident and after it. I know what I saw. I saw Sean Porter rock this guy, buckle him.
His knees buckled.
Sean's not a big puncher. He's not known for power. He's known for pressure. He's known for volume, but not concussive power. And in spite of that, he made Errol Spence Jr.'s knees buckle.
It was before the car accident.
After the car accident, Ugas ain't known for power. Ugas ain't no concussive puncher. But didn't he send Errol Spence Jr. careening into the ropes in what should have been ruled a knockdown? Because the ropes were the only thing that held Errol up.
There's no need for this fucking rematch.
And if you're Showtime, do you even want to spend money on a rematch, doing that all over again? Satisfying the fighter's financial demands for a box office fight that, in all likelihood, is going to sell less pay-per-views than the first one did, because the first one was so lopsided.
First fight is estimated to have sold somewhere in between 600,000 and 700,000 pay-per-view buys.
No fights in between. As lopsided as that was, do you think the second one is going to sell more? Do you think the second one will even touch the numbers the first one did? I don't think so.
Then why do it?
Not fussed about it. They can do it at 147, they can do it at 154. The outcome is going to be the same or worse.
Errol loses.
Same way they hoped that things would be different in the third Wilder versus Fury fight is the same way they're hoping things will be different in this fight.
People are fucking stupid.
Being stubborn about it, that's not a virtue. That's not strength of character.
Oh, that's being childish, that's being petulant, emotional, that's being stupid.
You're fucking stupid if you think it's gonna be different.
Moron.
Go ahead, run it back.